2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it. All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Ask Tyler and Brannon Anything. I am really excited today because we have a guest on, and she is a therapist. And she has some very interesting questions that I think will really create a lot of thought. And you may disagree with some of the answers, you may agree with them, but hopefully what they do is get you thinking. And so I want to introduce Erica. She's a therapist up in Idaho, correct, Erica?
Yep.
Okay, so welcome to the show. Erica reached out to me and said, hey, I got some questions. I want to pick your brain. And I think it's on two fronts, right? It's on kind of the therapy side of things. And then it's just on some concepts about life and recovery and things like that. So Erica, if you want to just fire away, let's just get started.
Okay. So my first question, and I'll even add a little bit more. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been the therapist and I've been the client. I've been the couple. I've been the couple's therapist. And so it gives me a lot of breadth of experience, I suppose, not necessarily all the answers, but I do have lots of questions, and I'm always curious how other people approach some of the tough ones. So the first tough question that I feel like it's hard to find this balance. There is a perspective in psychology with research on how to approach sexuality,
yes,
how to approach masturbation, more specifically. Porn and masturbation, those are often linked, but when it comes to masturbation alone, sometimes there are different camps. The church or the church culture, maybe I should say, has definitely one camp, and that's pretty decided and known. But psychology and research sometimes has other ideas that maybe seem challenging, but then also have evidence of helping in ways. So how do you approach that? How do you deal with that? And how do you also give people permission to find their own way, not your way or the church's way? Because I think that's helpful.
Yes. So that question is just such a good question. And my answer on that has definitely shifted over time. So let me give you a little bit of background of me personally. I was raised in a very rigid, religious home where we were taught that masturbation was a sin, and it was evil, and so we were taught not to masturbate at all, and that if you did, that you really needed to kind of own up to that and deal with that sin. So that's how I was raised. And so when I first started as a therapist treating sexual addiction, I was very much in the camp of don't do it. Like, don't you dare. That is just straight up evil, and it's a sin. And over time, things have shifted for me a little bit. And I think Tyler and I would disagree on this some. And this is how, for me, they've shifted. I had a church leader get up in church once, and he was talking to parents about the youth, and he said something that really struck me. He said, masturbation is something that most every young person needs to learn how to manage and overcome, which is very different than what I heard when I was a kid. What I heard when I was a kid is masturbation is bad. Don't do it. And so hearing that from a church leader really struck me. And then Jennifer Finlayson-Five, she's coming out with her stuff, and her stuff, she's very sex positive. She's a sex therapist, and I would say she's pro masturbation. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to me that so many people within our church culture, the LDS church culture, are resonating with her, and either she's leading them astray or they're resonating with some level of truth that she's willing to courageously say, even though it goes kind of against what's been drilled into us. The other thing that, and I want to come back to something Finlayson-Five said to me a few weeks ago, but I'll come back to that. The other thing that I look at, Erica, is if you really think about it, and I don't know if we have the hard numbers here, but how many adolescents masturbate? Like, how many people actually masturbate or have an experience with that in adolescence? What would you think, Erica? Like, percentage-wise?
The vast majority. I feel like you just plan on it happening more than you plan on it not. It's kind of how I approach those things.
Yes, girls and boys. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, you plan on it happening more than you plan on it not happening. So if you take a step out of it and you just kind of look at this, could I go as far to say that masturbation is kind of a part of human sexual development? Is that going too far? The church might come in and say, no, it's not, right? But then when we really look at it, almost everybody experiences some level of exploration and masturbation as they're growing up, right? And even the LDS church has shifted their messaging on this a little bit to, you know what, if something happens, then just be open about it and talk about it. Not so much hellfire and brimstone around it. And so when I was talking to Finlayson-Five a couple of months ago, she said, you know what, the issue, one of the big issues in marriage when it comes to pornography and masturbation is not actually the pornography or the masturbation. What it is it's the lack of transparency and openness about who you are as a sexual being. The big problem is when somebody is masturbating, but then really hiding it from their partner because they have so much shame about it. They can't own who they are. And it creates this shame machine, and it creates all kinds of attachment problems in the relationship. So I'm not suggesting that just go ahead and masturbate all you want, right? I think it can be a compulsive addiction. It can be problematic. It can be used to numb your life out.
So many things, right?
Yeah, as can so many things. Yes, right. So So I don't know, what do you think, Erica, about what I'm saying?
A lot of very similar things. I think the key to what that church leader said was to manage.
Yes.
And that is very different than to abstain. And that also isn't meaning that just giving yourself full permission, but we have to manage a lot of emotions and a lot of experiences in our life. And when we can, the thing that I love that Finland 5 talks about is moving forward within our own integrity and try to make choices for ourselves that is still adhering to our core values. And so I think being okay, and there was a concept that you guys talked about in an episode a while ago. And you were interviewing actually another therapist, and I can't remember what he said, but it was that whole idea: if I'm told not to do it, then I'm going to want to do it a ton.
Right. Yes.
And I think in sexuality that's a tough thing, because we're sexual from birth, and we can't be told to not be sexual. Of course, behavior is adding upon that, but you can't just abstain from who you are completely.
Amen. Totally. I was showing last night, I was running a psych ed group, and I showed this video of they did a brain scans of porn addicts, and they showed how their brains were lighting up like a Christmas tree when they showed them pornography. And then this guy who actually he produced porn for 15 years as his job, he did the brain scan, and his brain didn't light up at all. And I thought, that's really curious. Like, he's been very much exposed to it. And I think about it, if you think about it, you take a very highly religious person, and you throw lust, you throw pornography, masturbation in there. There's a lot more going on in that brain than somebody else. There's a lot more risk. There's just a lot more emotion going on. And so the brain's firing off a lot more because there's so much shame and risk and all that around that thing, right? And I'm not saying that sex in and of itself won't fire the brain off, but I actually think you mix in the shame of things, and if you come across very rigid and you can't just be open with who you actually are, it feeds and fuels an addiction, right? Yeah. So I love what you just said, Erica. It's all about being honest with who you really are. And we're all sexual beings, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
And we can't change that. And I think some people feel like that's what I need to change now, is because I'm feeling these things or thinking these things. And now I'm feeling shame because I'm feeling these things, I'm thinking these things, and that takes them down a rabbit hole of shame. That's the most dangerous.
Right. But if let me throw this kind of past you and think about this. You take a couple where there's been betrayal trauma, and if I as a therapist am saying, like, just be more open about your sexuality and about your masturbation, that can really trigger the partner.
Yeah.
Of like, what are you saying? You're saying this is okay, right?
Yeah.
And I actually think that he'll masturbate less. He'll indulge less in those compulsive behaviors if he's more honest and open about who he actually is sexually, versus acting like he's not, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that you said that, because that actually brings up a couple that I've worked with, and their situation was so interesting, because they started in this, he is doing these things and she's feeling the typical betrayed and addicted kind of thing. But as they worked through things, and there had been years up to the point to when they were working with me, they've been working through things. So when they started, it was just pain, so much pain. Right. He felt shame, she felt shame, she was hurt every time he talked, all of those things. But I think also as they matured and they grew older, they were able to understand different things with sexuality, and he understood shame better. And he came to this point where he was done with feeling shame. He said, I'm done. I'm not going to feel bad about this anymore. I'm not going to feel bad that I'm a bad person. And that didn't actually make him stop, but it let go of this idea that he's a horrible person. And so he was feeling better, and he was actually doing better, but there was still this, and now my wife, I still can't tell my wife, or I still don't feel comfortable with how I talk about it with my wife. And as they continued to work through, they got to a point where she became more I use this, okay, I'm putting air quotes, listeners, accepting in a way that she was more, I don't know how to put it, but she wasn't as shaming of him or of herself. She, I think, saw that behavior when it did happen as somewhat normalized.
Right.
And in her feeling more comfortable and him feeling more comfortable, the whole dynamic changed. That he recognized, and honestly, she said this, she kind of gave him permission to more masturbate when needed, so that there wasn't the whole sexual tension and struggle between the two of them. And I know this is taboo for so many people to understand, but what it did for this couple is that he recognized, it was like, I know Fitness and Five talked about like ice cream. I can never have ice cream, but now when I can have ice cream, I can choose more maturely of when I do it and when I don't. And so I can recognize, okay, I'm feeling things today, and I know that I don't have a chance with my wife today, but I can maybe take care of my own sexual needs or not. Like there wasn't that secrecy, there wasn't that problem as much. He found himself actually acting out less. It wasn't taking it away, but it definitely helped with the shame, and it did decrease things greatly, and it helped the couple because they were being more honest together, come together and feel better.
Yep. I totally, I've seen it happen many times. And, Erica, if you were to tell me you can't eat any sugar, Brannon, like no sugar, you stop it. And if you eat it, then you're going to have a ton of shame, and like nobody will love you as you are. Yeah, then that donut has a huge power over me. Like it is pulsating at me when it's so rigid and like I can't go there, I can't do that. It's like, I go into the control and release phase of things where it's like, okay, I'm gonna abstain. I'm gonna abstain until I binge, until I go for it. And going along with what your story, I have a similar one. And a couple I was working with, they haven't had sex in 10 years. And they're married, haven't had sex in 10 years. And he'll masturbate once a month or once every other month. And every time he masturbates, his tail goes between his legs. He goes to his wife in shame, and he tells her how horrible he is and just how bad he is because he messed up. And she usually gets really upset, shuts down, pushes away from him, and the cycle goes on where there's no intimacy there. And I was working with them, and I said to him, why don't you be honest with her? And he's like, well, I am. When I mess up, I said, no, be honest with her that you want to masturbate. Be honest with her that you're choosing to masturbate once a month or once every other month. That's what you're choosing. Because what you're saying to her right now is, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, but you're doing it anyways. Mm-hmm. So he had that conversation with her. He went to her and said, I'm choosing to masturbate. I'm going to schedule it once a month. I'm choosing to do that, just so you know. I'm planning on it this month. And as you could imagine, totally triggered her. But there was this weird thing that happened with her where she was like how you're choosing your addiction. Why are you but oh my gosh, like you're being honest with me. Mm-hmm. She wasn't used to that. Like you're actually being honest with me. And what's interesting with him is it took away some of the urge and the desire to actually do it. And he was telling me, he's like, it's weird because I don't even feel like I have to do it this Friday night at whatever time, right? Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. The shame or fear feeds the control. The control then feeds the release, which creates relapsing. So it's a paradox. It's a paradox of accept that you can masturbate, and then you'll masturbate less compulsively, right? So that's a great question. And I know there's a lot of taboo stuff around it, right? I think it's awesome that we can talk about it, and we're therapists, and I don't think either one of us is trying to force an agenda on anyone or anything like that. I'll speak for both of us. My concern is that people live out of their shame and that they're free and they can really explore who they are and love themselves. And so if being more accepting of your sexuality is a way to do that, then let's talk about the taboo stuff. It's fine with me. So,
yeah.
All right. Do you have other questions for me, Erica?
Yes. Okay. So I mean, this kind of goes along with the idea of shame if we're talking about couples. I've had several couples where, I mean, because men versus women, they experience and they react to shame very differently. And of course, individuals do. You know, I'm kind of generalizing here, but if we could kind of put it a little bit more specifically, women, men, because this is what I see in a session, especially if we're dealing with things like pornography and masturbation. They get defensive when we're trying to, I mean, and usually when I'm talking, I've done a lot of talk about what shame is and what it does to us and how we're reacting to it. And I can see sometimes the wife is trying to be really open. They're trying to empathize and they're trying to be there for their husband. And the husband will get triggered by shame. They'll get defensive and they'll shut down so that they can in no way be there for the wife.
Yes.
When she needs to talk, when she needs to have that empathy, their shame is so triggering that it almost takes them out of the session emotionally.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? And I'm sure it could happen opposite too, but I see it more traditionally in that fashion.
Oh, I see it all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about. And this is, you know, I've tried before to force him to empathize with her. And it doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. You go down the shame spiral because now you're telling him that you know, he sucks at empathy and he's not so now he feels worse about himself and he's more and more flooded. In sessions before, I've actually just stopped and I've just said, let's just stop and breathe, right? Notice where you're at right now. And in a really calm voice, we'll take a timeout in the session and just notice, like, you see how you're flooded. Notice how you're wanting to react and respond right now. You know, and maybe help him, you know, figure out some affirmations in that moment. You know, he can do hard things, calm himself down because he's now in fight or flight. His limbic is firing off. He's not gonna meet her bid for connection very well. So it's just understanding how that brain works and then calming the person down. But then there's still a lot of work to do. And what you want to do is, and it might need to be more in an individual session, come back and say, why do you get so flooded by this? Why is holding her pain so scary? Why is she so scary? And as you dig down there, what you'll usually find is that he's consuming her. He's using her for his self-worth. And so her reactions and responses and emotions have such a heavy weight on him that he can't handle it. And if you dig down further, you'll find some trauma. You'll find a void there where he feels like he's not good enough. He's not lovable. He's not okay as he is. And he has some of his own work to do. And I'd say either EMDR or just some real inner child work, or just figuring out who he really is so that he then can be strong enough for her to be upset with him or uncomfortable or whatever it is. But yeah, see it all the time, Erica. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I would say don't, you know, in a therapy session, when I say calm them down, but also you can learn how to do that outside of therapy. And you can say something like, look, I'm not connecting to you right now. I'm getting defensive. I need to take a break. I'll be back in 10 minutes and I want to hear you. Right.
Yeah.
So
have that time out and give them that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because I definitely have discussed similar things and what's going on in our body and those stress responses. I'm curious though, and maybe this is me projecting, is that sometimes I feel like the husband feels ganged up on by me and the wife because I'm female, and what I'm saying is maybe not as receptive to them because I just feel like I'm aligned with her, and she's already the one that isn't there for him or isn't understanding or whatever, he's feeling. And that's tough to get around sometimes. Some of you even said that. I feel like you guys are ganging up on me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to be neutral.
Oh my gosh. I know the exact feeling that you have in that position, because I've been there many times. And it's really hard, because you actually, your heart, you care as much about him as her. You're just there for the good of them and the couple. And, but pointing out where he's not meeting her needs is what you're supposed to do as a therapist. You're supposed to reflect things back like that. Right. And so that's where I think it does happen a lot, where the woman is saying, I want you to just connect to me. And the man is not connecting. And the therapist, believe it or not, I don't think it's because you're female, because I get it all the time too. Okay. The husband feels ganged up from me and the wife, right? Yeah. Right. But all I'm trying to do is get him to see how he's creating this thing over and over again. It takes a lot of what I call collateral. So I'm building rapport, trust, and that's why I like to do some individual work first, before they just come in as a couple, so that he knows I got his back and she knows that I got her back. Mm-hmm. And so when we get into the hard stuff, the hardest stuff in therapy, I got enough love between me and the both of them that they can tolerate some of that stuff. Because if you don't have that collateral and you just go after the issue of him not connecting, he'll turn you into just he'll play the victim to you as much as he does to his wife as well. So, and Erica, sometimes they do it anyways. Sometimes like as hard as you try, as hard as you have collateral, they do it anyways. And to me, that shows somebody who's not really there to work in therapy, right? So, yeah.
And that's tough. I feel like whether that be with couples or individual, when people are so, I would say, overwhelmed in their shame, and they can in no way really start to challenge it or even recognize it because they believe it so deeply, those are the hardest ones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the more you talk about their shame, the more their shame is triggered.
Yes.
Right. The analogy I always use with it is like if a ring fell down a pipe, and so I have big fat fingers. It's like if I stuck my fat finger down there to try to get the ring, I just push it further down the pipe. That's how it feels like that's how it feels like working with somebody in a shame storm. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, stop! I want just stop. Like, I want to help you. I care about you. Like, and this is what you can shift here. And I think a lot of it comes back to just mindfulness and connecting to the body, reality checking. And because if they're flooded in that shame, then they're running. They're often running. And no matter what you do, they're going to run further away. So,
yeah. They just see me as a big shame trigger too, which is so not what I want to be.
Right. Okay. By the way, though, Erica, I think a woman therapist working with a man who doesn't really trust women can be very good, very powerful. If the therapist is good enough and she can be boundaried, not turn into an object, and just be strong, but also be very compassionate and loving to that man, it can be very therapeutic. So, just because that lack of trust is there because you're feeling it because the male-female thing, there might be something there to work with. Yeah. Some really solid transference to go after in that therapy. So.
That's great. Oh. Okay. Next question. So this is kind of more from the personal therapeutic side, just as a human in this profession.
Okay.
I feel like I mean, and this is, I suppose, more my experience in the community. I'm in about as conservative LDS community, I think, as it gets. I joke that there's more kids, there's more green Jello.
Hey, I live in Utah County, and I think you got me beat. So.
It is. It's very. I mean, and there's wonderful, wonderful people, but the culture is pretty thick here.
Right.
And so I find it difficult sometimes when there are ideas that are in any way different, or that it's hard for me to find my own spiritual space without feeling. And I don't think the judgment is always direct, but there's that maybe assumption or that curiosity that others will feel that I'm so different. I mean, and I'm not like falling away and running away from the gospel or anything like that, but I definitely question things. And I definitely sometimes question things in Sunday school.
Right. Yes.
So how do you as a person find your footing spiritually in communities like ours that are not diverse, I will say?
Yes. So I have been through my own process with my spirituality, and it's interesting because the ward I go to, the church I go to, I'm very involved. I love going, but I'm known as this kind of renegade guy. This guy. So our ward was splitting. And listen to this, Erica, because it's really interesting. Our ward was splitting, and the bishop came to me and said, "Hey, the week before we split, I want you to talk and just like give them everything, just like go for it." And I thought, okay, I'm the guy that says some pretty kind of crazy stuff at church. I'll talk about sex. I'll challenge. Somebody was talking about tithing and the way they were paying it. And I was like, they were saying, well, it was actually fast offerings. They're saying, I pay double because I want double the blessings. And I said, well, what if the blessings you get is a bunch of like trials? And so like, I'll say stuff like that at church, and look what's happening. They want me to speak at church. I just a few months back, the Relief Society was having an event, and who did they want as their guest speaker? Me. And it's really interesting too, in individual therapy sessions, I think we have a really unique kind of view on things, because people will open up to me about their spirituality. Yeah. And actually talk about the things that they really feel and the things they really believe. And what happens is if you have enough courage to just speak up a little bit, it frees other people who are sitting there thinking, I have to just fall into line and be exactly like this. And I guarantee you there's so many people all around you in your church who feel like, man, I wish I could just be more open and be more free with my spirituality. And you're so not alone in that ward that you're in, but you might not really realize how not alone you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the church, your community, they need people like you, Erica. They need people like you big time. So yes, be courageous.
On good days, I tell myself that, and on bad days, I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I have more good days than bad days, though. So that's
you have to be willing to have some people judge you, right?
Yeah.
I think some of the old timers in my ward are kind of like, what is that? Like, what? That guy, he's annoying. Like, what? Just read your scriptures and pray, Brannon. And it's like, well, okay, you might judge me. I don't care. I'm still going to be honest with who I am and where I'm at. So
it's not as much the judgment part, because really I'm okay with that. People like me, people don't like me. I'm okay. I can roll with that. But there's sometimes this sadness in my heart, like this kind of just heaviness that it's like that there is, I think, so much that can enrich people's lives that people are missing out on in their very rigid and narrow perspective.
Yeah. Yes.
And it makes me hurt for them, and it makes them hurt for me because I can't connect with them because they're somewhat in those places.
Right. So someone got up in my church and started. It was a should fest. It was just like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be doing, and my heart was like, ugh, yucky. I don't like this. Like, this is actually like spirituality and faith to me.
Yeah.
This is fear and control. And as I sat there and listened to it, I really had to go through a process while I was listening to him of coming to terms with that's where he's at. And that's it's okay for him to be where he's at. It's okay for me to be where I'm at. Right. And we're all in this process of growth and learning. And sometimes my heart goes out and says, like, come on, just like see something bigger here, like open up a little bit.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's not our job to do that for them. It's their job to do that for them. So yeah, but I totally feel you. I know how you feel. So yeah. All right, Erica, do you have any other questions?
Well, we can end with one that kind of goes with this if you feel like we have time.
Let's do one more.
Okay. So going along the line with maybe different perspectives, well, how do you deal with maybe your approach being very different than church leaders that the couple or the individual are dealing with? I've definitely had that where there's very contrary teachings, I suppose you could say.
Yes.
And I'm just wanting the individual to find their own way. I'm not saying my way's better, but I'm wanting them to be open to whatever is good for them and not just listen to the bishop or their Sunday school teacher or whatever.
Absolutely. So, if I had a dime for every person I've met with who has received bad information from a church leader, and then they're actually coming to therapy because a lot of the stuff that they were doing that their church leader was telling them to do. And so most people understand that their church leaders are just human beings who have an opinion. Some people, hook, line, and sinker, will follow the church leader no matter what.
Yeah, it's gospel for them.
Yeah. But I believe that if you speak truth, that resonates with people. And so if you're saying something that's totally opposite of what that leader's saying, they'll either let that resonate and listen to you, or they won't work with you anymore, right? They'll go away. And that just means they're not ready for that truth if you're actually speaking truth. Another thing I'll say to my clients all the time is, look, I get things wrong. I might say something to you that really doesn't feel right. And this comes down to your relationship between you and God, not you, Brannon, then God, or you, the bishop, then God. It's you and God. So if your bishop says something to you, really see how that feels to you. If the therapist says something to you, feel that out in your gut, your intuition. You're like, really, really check that out. And if it might be hard what they say, but it might be true. Or it might really not feel right. And if it doesn't, then be willing to have the courage to actually challenge that and not accept that, even if it's a bishop or a leader or a therapist or whomever. So I've gotten in some pretty heated discussions with church leaders. And, you get all kinds of things. I hear about church leaders that are the best support and the most amazing help for people. And then I hear about church leaders that are the opposite of that. And so I just like to be a voice of truth and a voice of support for them, no matter where they're at in that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, I think you did.
Yeah,
because it's different for each individual. So you're just trying to help them find a good path.
Absolutely. So, all right, Erica, thank you so much for coming on. You asked some just incredible questions that I think a lot of people think. I love questions that are a little bit like edgy and taboo. And I think like everyone that you asked was, so I appreciate that. And if you guys, liked what you heard here, then rate and review the podcast and share it with anybody. So
Erica,
Tyler just logged on. Go ahead, Tyler.
This is Tyler. Erica, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the questions you brought. We'd love to have you come back on sometime. And I know you had a whole list of other things, and every one of those was an excellent question that is going to lead to some debate between me and Brannon here too now. So it's awesome that you brought it up. Thank you for being here and for your willingness to come.